This is season 9, episode 12, number 360 of the Decoded podcast. It's a privilege to be able to read that out and watch those numbers go up. I like this.
360.
360. The season 9, that's something. Anyway, I wanted to share something interesting with you. It's been, I would say, the last month. I've been really digging into situations at work that are on my plate, but bringing those situations to one of the guidance counselors that I work with that's part of my caseload team,
Mhm.
really analyze the situations that I'm working with from his lens because I'm like I'm hungry to learn more about what this looks like from his perspective. And I got to tell you, bro, it's been a really cool experience in those moments because I'm literally hearing things and collecting information that I would never consider, that I would never see because I'm not aware of those side streets. And now he's like, no, here's a side street. This is what da 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 da. And it's just so cool. It's been my, you know how they talk, it's been my PD embedded in my workday, like real professional learning in real time, in addition to what I'm doing, which I love because sometimes, most of the time, people encourage that type of thing, but it's never I shouldn't use the word never. It's not often that it actually connects with my perspective on what I want to learn, right? So
Mm.
like, no, in collaboration with this person, you're going to do this. And I'm like, oh, for real? What a waste of my time. What a waste of their time. But in this situation, I've brought it on myself. The guidance counselor is uh, more than happy to engage. And it's not like I'm sitting in front of him saying, look, I want to understand what this is like from your perspective. It's not like that clear to him, but to me, it's okay. This is the situation. This is how I'm going to work through this. But I want to know what's a guidance perspective of what I'm doing and or what needs to happen on the guidance end. Because for me, it's a beautiful uh, synchronization of the two roles. Particularly, I'm interested in what I want to do his job, but I want to learn mine good enough that I'm efficient and effective at it. But I want the double side. I want to be able to see, okay, this is what I'm doing. What on your end? What happens on your end in a situation like this? Because inevitably he's going to be involved. It's a matter of where does most of the situation lie at the moment? At the moment, it lies with learning accommodations. Okay, it lies with me supporting that and working with the teachers and the family. But this will extend into pathways. It has already extended. There's some mental health pieces. There's pieces that leave my lane and go into his. Right now, mostly it's 80% my lane. So I've been taking situations like this and and I've been doing it backwards too, like 80% me, 20% him, but also I've been talking to him about the 80% him, 20% me. Like, what's happening on your end? How are you navigating it? What's the process? Who do you talk to when you don't understand what needs to happen next? Who can I start talking to other than you that can help me see the bigger picture?
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to share that with you because I know we
Hmm.
dig into learning all the time, right? We're constantly learning things, but I am intentionally, like a surgeon with a scalpel, cutting things open and knowing my part of the surgery, but I want to learn about that part of the surgery. I love it because it actually I man, it makes me feel good, right? And it's overload. There's so much in here, but it's like I'm seeking it out. I want to know. I want to know. I just wanted to share that with you. It's been about a month now that I will literally go to his office, knock on his door, say, I need 10 minutes. Yeah, he's like, come on in. What's up? I'm like, I want to talk about Chris Clough. He came up in caseload. This is what you said you were going to do. This is the plan. This is what I'm thinking on my end. Where are we at with you? Where are we at with your end? What has happened? What is not happening? What's happening with this coach? What do we do about this? And then the other times are, look, I know it's on my caseload. Chris Clough, we talked about him. You guys gave it to me. This is what I'm doing. But this is I can see this is what's happening next. Or I talk to
Hmm.
the teacher, there's no way he's getting that credit. That teacher is hell bent on it's not gonna happen. So I'm like, so what do we do? What do we look at before the house burns down? We can put the fire out because we got a plan. Why wait for it to burn when we know this is gonna happen or this isn't gonna happen? Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because the nature of what we do, how we operate, the work we do at work, it's lit me up. I'm feeling good walking into work with all these complicated situations and thinking, okay, what do I need to do to grow here? What do I need to do to light me up? And right now it's what happens on that end? What happens on that end? I want to know.
Couple things. Check your mic. Your mic is going watery a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. So do a reset, reconnect, and all blah 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 for a little bit. Um, Two different things you made me think of here, and I am curious from our chat group. Good morning. I don't know if Rochelle, Gary, if you're here. If not, but I'll do a preemptive hello. I'm wondering about this. So I've noticed since COVID, I haven't heard the phrase, well, the kid has a right to fail. I haven't heard that phrase in a little while. I would say since, 2020, since prior 2020, 2021. Haven't heard it. It became, I think to a degree, and we'll say even with the work you were doing in the re-engagement, I think it became kind of it went kind of nuclear, and people weren't wanting to talk like that. Now, whether we need to talk like that or don't have to talk like that, this is just a noticing, and I'll circle back to that. We haven't said that for years in a while. Second thing, I find myself this particular school year seeking out the simplifiers. I'm seeking out the people that I'm not looking for people that in a wholesale way are doing things efficiently, but just the pocket individuals that are doing little skill sets right. Whether it's the way they do their documentation, it's their workflow and logistics for assessment. Uh, it's fascinating to watch some of my colleagues who are on a pure resourcing schedule. They actually don't. They have professionally managed time. They don't teach, right? They don't have, like, I have two sections of learning strategies this semester and next, and I'm resourcing just the kids on that list. But because I teach two periods, my day is organized differently than my colleagues who are resourcing all day long, right? So I'm really watching to see people wrapping and completing and checking off those boxes. And of course, when you work I think when you work bureaucratically towards efficiency, sometimes the compassion and humanity can fall out of it, right? Like paperwork completed at all costs. So one of the things I've had to anchor myself to is this kind of thought of, um, because my rationale for getting things done better and kind of embracing that Mimi thing that I sent you, or you sent me. I don't even know which one of us, but that maybe you sent it to me. We got to get better at hard. Who was that? I don't even know. Claim it. Was that me to you or you to me? Doesn't matter.
But
Doesn't matter. But
I do recall
we
it.
right. It was. I think it was a football team's like above their door. I think that's what it was. Change room phrase. Painted above the door. You don't. We can't expect easy. We have to get better at hard. And I think that puts words to kind of my mindset this year. That there is a whole lot of things that I do on the daily that are really hard to do, and not only as individual tasks, but also as synergized tasks. Like to try and find my path every single day to finishing between 3:45 and 4 p.m. in my mind has become a master class in Cirque du Soleil logistics, and to not have spillover. I don't mind, and spillover for me is the stuff that I can't get to a stop point. I like to get things to a stop point that it's at least chapter one. I pick up chapter two tomorrow. I don't like getting caught between chapters. So these two ideas parallel have got me fascinated. This idea that the kids, this idea that the kids have a right to fail. There's a very real and deep mitigation process whenever we sort of like find ourselves saying those words. And I think it's still a thing. It's still a thing. But that phrase in itself, the way I used to hear it was when you kind of threw your hands up in the air. Kids all have a right to fail. Mostly have that tone on your voice too, right? I've tried to think about the kids have a right to fail without getting frustrated that my efforts are inadequate. And that's a funny little bit of mind effery to play with. Because often I think that's how we sort of said it. It was sort of like the trump card you could slam down, boom, the kids have a right to fail. When we kind of felt like we were being pushed into a corner for all the different things that we tried. So I'm trying to shift that line because I do still believe that there's something in that phrase. There's something in that phrase that is still compelling. And I'm trying to figure out what's useful about it. Now, coming back to the efficiencies, I love what you've been talking about. I think that ultimately, the way I would use that, as I am right now, is how does this ensure that I'm done my day by 3:45 to 4 p.m. and I can transition into life with my family, life in my own, writing, playing, hanging. I like it. I like it a lot. You lit me up with that one.
How's my mic now?
Well, we'll see. It usually is it wasn't constant. So I was kind of watching a little bit to see if your hand was coming close or, what I mean? I was trying to I couldn't tell what was maybe triggering it. So sometimes it's bandwidth, sometimes it's the tech, right? It's that spirit of Clank, always spicy. Maybe I should prime Rochelle and Gary. Good morning. Back in the day, I don't know, back in year one, maybe even prior to that, I was working off an old MacBook, and I couldn't hear it. But you go back into some of that old footage, and I was underwater sometimes. It would glitch. It would speed up. Who knows?
And the
But
name of your computer was Clank.
I did push that. I called the computer Clank, and a from I think I did that came as like I really like the game Ratchet and Clank from PlayStation universe, Sony universe. It's a fun game. So Clank is the little robot that's from that game series. So there we go. Efficiencies and a kid has a right to fail. I'm wondering, Gary and Rochelle, do you hear that phrase? Do you hear that phrase? Does it pop up anymore? And what's the context that it pops up in? For me, it means something very differently. I take it more as a reminder that my day has to end. I think that's when my day has to end, with the knowledge that my day then has to start again. So to say my day ends and then my day is going to start again. And to a degree, just because other people's priorities don't end at the same time, I have to be able to kind of clock out. I have to be able to say, I'm going to do my thing here. This system, if we allow it, we never actually leave it, because then you get your car and then you get a text from a colleague, and then you sort of get home and you talk to your family and an email pops up from the system. Like, it's, you either sort of set the boundaries or you just expand the boundaries. So
Um, so this business about the kids failing,
mhm.
right to fail, it's still it exists where I am at, but usually this this is very interesting where you've taken this conversation, because I'm hearing it. It's just happening behind closed doors and certain closed doors. For example, recently, there are names that have popped up on our caseload list discussions that these kids are just there burning the house down. And I'm now at the point where I'm saying to the other members of the caseload team, look, how many more times do you think I need to meet with this student? Because whatever it is, what I'm doing is not working. So, and this is the beautiful part of the caseload teams that I'm part of, is I actually feel comfortable with the people in the room, and I actually believe there's a relationship there. There's a relationship with my vice principal, with the guidance counselor, and with the student success teacher. I feel in those, I look forward to those meetings because I trust them, and again, I walk in those rooms and I'm wide open. I want to hear the vice principal's position. I want to hear what student success has to say. And I really want to hear what guidance has to say, because I have an interest in that. Do they want to hear what I have to say? I don't know. I say what I want anyway. But lately I've been saying, I've met with this student many times. I've done this and I've done that. So either provide me with your position on what you think I should do, because what I'm doing isn't working. If you think that a meeting with me to talk about what's going on and try to break things down, try to find support for this student, if you think that's what needs to happen for the 10th time, convince me or provide me with new tools, because it's not working. So why am I still meeting with this student? So that's not to say I've met with Clough 10 times, that's it, I'm done. From now until the end of January, he's just going to fail. He's just not going to attend class. I'm not going to talk to him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, do you people have something for me that's different than what I've already done? And sometimes it's maybe, I think it's time now that and it's like the vice principal, the guidance counselor, you need to call him or her in, and you need to have the next step has to happen, because it's not working with me and it's probably not going to work with you either. But what are we doing that's different? What are we doing that's different? So I'll give you a great example. The other day at a caseload meeting, a name came up. I brought the name up and I said to the vice principal, this isn't working on my end anymore. It's not, I can't even find the student. When I find the student, it's like, hey, I found you. And it's usually in the hallway when I'm walking down the hall and they're skipping class. It's like, we need to talk. So we kind of pull over and we have the talk, and then I document it. I said to the vice principal, this is what's happening now. When I call classes, this kid's not nowhere to be found. And we know that that's part of the problem. I find them in the hall. I find them in the library. I find them outside. I find them everywhere except in the classroom. This is what I've done. There's not much more I can do. The VP literally, as I was talking, brought up the student's home phone and called the mom. And we had a great conversation with the mom at that moment in time. That afternoon, the kid was in her classes. And the next day, when other members of the caseload team were looking for this kid, she was in her classes. So something happened. Perhaps it was the power of the vice principal. The title. I'm the vice principal, and I'm calling you because your daughter has a major attendance problem. And Chidiak's here with me, and he's told me he's tried to meet with her, and this is where he finds her. And it was a great. The VP was very um, the phone from my perspective, the phone call was great. It was caring, it was informative, and it was very black and white. Like, this is what we're seeing here. You got the midterm marks, the kid is failing, the kid's been removed from a class. Like, mom, what's happening on your end? Are you seeing something that we should be aware of? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the power of that phone call did something somewhere to cause this kid to attend a day and a half more than she has in a long time. Will it last? Don't know. Will the teachers, be supportive and be like, you missed a ton of time, but hey, let's see what we can do to either help you get this credit or um, get your mark high enough that credit recovery could be an option or whatever, right? Why did it take from September to now for that call to happen? So I'm not blaming, I'm not, but what I'm saying is that as we do these meetings and as I'm assigned my duties, which I take very seriously, I do my work, I report back, and for some reason that feedback loop isn't working until I say, hey, this is what I've done. It's not working. Give me something, tell me what I'm missing, pontificate, tell me how I should be doing my job, or pick it up and take it on and see what happens next. Behind closed doors, there is talk that this kid's gonna fail, and they obviously there's something happening. There's something happening, but they're gonna fail. Either I've talked to some teachers who are like, they've not done one stitch of work. Even if they were to do work from today to the end of the semester, I don't know if they're gonna pass. And I'm like, you do what you need to do. You're the teacher. You do what you need to do. Well, I'm telling you though, you got a VP, a student success teacher, a guidance counselor, and a spec ed monitor backing this kid. We're doing everything we can to get them to engage. So I don't know if that helps you understand that this is a serious situation and the kid has struggles, or maybe you just don't care. That's fine too. I can't control you, just like I can't control the kid, but we're trying to do something here. And kids will fail. Like, you should have seen the midterms. Bro, I was calling kids out of class saying, I just looked at your midterm marks. You're failing 2 courses. Like, what's going on? What's keeping you from attending? Is your pathway not the right pathway? What, like, talk to me.
Any grade trend on that?
What do you mean? Oh, um, grade 9s are really struggling this year.
Same for me.
And I tell you, like, the D-Stream geography course and math course, they're killers, man. They are
There's
killers.
something. There's something. I was just talking. I was Thursday. I said there's something happening with the geo in the math. More so in the geo. I find more so in the geo. There's something there where the kids are just like, I don't know if this is the initial growing pains by course design. Like it's so consistent. I wonder if it's about course design that this initial kind of out of the gate first couple of years growing pains trying to figure out how to do D-stream geo, the math, maybe that too. I think math probably is closer to skill. What some students all in the pool are expected to do mathematically. It's a bit of a challenge. The grade nines definitely, depending on how they were modified. I think that there's more doors into the geo, regardless of the modification to their programming coming out of elementary. I think depending on how heavily modified their mathematics were coming out of elementary, I think the D-streamed becomes like pretty pretty tough, pretty tough. Um, yeah, that's fascinating, fascinating. I'm having the exact same, and we are worlds away, you and me. We are worlds away geographically, and just the way the schools run systematically. You're in a different. So there's obviously something about those courses. If I'm having a similar conversation at my school,
Bro, were your ears burning yesterday at all at any point in the day?
dude, I was at the spa, so my ears were perfect all day long. Yeah, I was in full chill mode all day long.
I
What
it
what
lo-
went down?
I would love to see. Sorry, I'm switching. I'm talking about
Do it.
something else now.
Pivot.
You'll hear
We're
that.
here. We go. Here we go.
Um, so yesterday was bus cancellation day in my school
Yep.
board,
hmm
and my school is
Inclement weather.
in sorry,
Inclement weather. Right.
inclement weather caused the
There's no
school.
actual bus cancellation day, just so that
Oh,
the
yeah,
algorithm knows. Yeah.
right. So the weather was bad here. So the transportation authority for our districts, public board, Catholic board said, we're not running today. The roads are not good enough. We can't run. It's not safe. But the schools are open. So I went to work. There were not a lot of students in my building.
hmm
It was basically like the school was closed. It appeared that way. I'm walking past classrooms. There's like one student in the room just working, and the teachers at their desk working. But I still had my yard supervision. My supervision on on Fridays, my supervision is outside in the back parking lot, and I know how you feel about that. Which, hey, I'd love for you to light a fire on that whole thing. But and many of my colleagues thought I was crazy when I went down to the office in my coat, and my toque, and my boots to get the clipboard and the radio to go outside and just walk back and forth on the sidewalk. Bro, the weather was not friendly yesterday. It was
hmm
snowing, it was cold, it was windy, but I was out there. And the first couple of minutes were just like me, like a robot walking up and down. But then after the first couple of minutes, and I would love to see the footage because there's cameras all around me. I'd love to
hmm
see the footage of me when I moved from those few minutes into the next 15 minutes. I had a big smile on my face. I was talking to myself. Not only was I talking to myself, I was talking to you and just talking about the ridiculousness of this particular situation. Bro, I did not see one human come outside during those 20 minutes. Okay. I did not see one animal. I just, as I'm walking in the wind, I'm smiling and I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to you, laughing. And at one point, as I was walking towards the building. Somebody in one of the classrooms was waving at me. So I waved back and um, 20 minutes in the freezing cold, snow coming down. The paper on the clipboard is soaked, which brought a smile to my face too, because I'm like, well, you want me to have the clipboard? I got the clipboard, but now the papers are soaked. Um, the radio's soaked, and I'm like, well, so at the end of my supervision, the next person came out and said, why are you walking back and forth? I'm like, that's what I was told this supervision is. And I said, bro, there's cameras all around us. Am I going to defy my orders and have somebody call me in and say, "Why aren't you doing your job?" And he laughs. He goes, "Nobody's going to do that here." I'm like, "I understand. But what I want is someone to review the tape and to be like, either Chidiak is really stupid or because he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do and there's nobody here, or he's
Mhm.
really dumb, sorry, really smart in doing what he's supposed to be doing. Anyway, so he says to me, "I'm certainly not doing that. I'm staying right here." I'm like, "Hey, man, you do what works for you." And then a couple of other teachers were coming out to go for lunch, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "My supervision." They're like, "There's nobody here." I said, "Hey, I completely understand what you're saying. This is my supervision. This is my time. I just did my supervision." And they're like shaking their heads. They're like, one of them made a comment like, "You are just like the students you work with." And I was like, I'm going to take that as a compliment. But I was talking to you. I was like, "Clough, man, look at me now." I would love to get that footage of me just walking back and forth in this storm. Gary, would you be proud of me, Gary? As an administrator, Gary, would you be like, "There's one of our saints walking back and forth doing his supervision"?
It's a funny it's a funny little bit of mind play because I am aware of surveillance in the school, and I am aware that now, okay, so surveillance in the school, the rule is as an administrator, you don't go check the cameras. It can be different in different boards, but the general rule is you never use it for lurking or peeping. You don't. So I actually don't know if it's an official rule. I think if okay, so it here's the tricky sort of space. If you're going to have a conversation, so an administrative conversation, you have to be careful about what you introduce into the conversation because if it's an investigation, there's a very specific protocol you have to follow. If it's a counseling conversation, then there's a different protocol, and you have to be cautious of what you introduce on either side. So, for example, um, specific questions that are asked by default can trip you up. Like if you're just information seeking, it's almost like it has to come out naturally. So I'm kind of aware of this in the back of my head. And obviously I am not looking, nor am I sort of like, trying to be the architect of my own demise here, where I'm doing stuff in the shadows that I don't get caught for. I'm not talking about that. But I am kind of aware of that if at any point people were to check the footage of me and how I navigate the school, that I hope they say a couple different things. I hope they say, holy shit, he moves fast, like because I walked very fast through the school, like my transitional movement, like if I'm destination focused, like you'd be going, go to camera 5, go to camera 6, go to camera 19, because I'm just like tuck, 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 I'm moving through the school. Second, as I move through the school at any given moment, am I connecting with kids? So do you see me interacting? Third, do I move efficiently through the school? So does it look like when you sort of figure out where I'm going, I want someone to say, "Oh shit, I never thought about that." Like, yeah, that's a good way to get to that spot. And then kind of finally, am I doing my job? Like, am I doing things that look like job? And it's funny, when I do cafeteria, I generally don't stop moving. I'm constantly sort of walking around the cafeteria. I might stop for a second, check in with a kid. I mean, it's great from a cert perspective because being in the cafeteria at lunchtime, I can get like I have my kids on a like at least a once a week kind of a check-in, just so I can sort of check the box. Yes, I did my check-in, which is kind of self-imposed because the kids that aren't currently on, like, that's not what the actual IEP says has to happen. Like it doesn't have to be weekly, like for every single kid. But that's what I try to do just to sort of stay fresh and stay connected. All that to say, whatever was going on with you or what you're sort of saying, Gary, would you be proud of seeing the work that you do? It really becomes a lot of that invisible work. And you realize that there's a utility to it because at some point you sort of sit down and you're like, crap, I have to document all this, because you actually had a really rich experience. You had a really rich experience. You met some people, you saw some stuff, you got refreshed, you got some movement, like, yeah, all that kind of stuff. I kind of like it's easy to sit down, even if your day doesn't allow you. It's actually very easy to sit down. So I like it. And you say there's cameras all outside. The irony that I hear in that is there's cameras all outside, yet now they need a human to be out there too in the middle of the winter, right? Like, it's kind of, if it's all surveilled, then it's all surveilled. And I get it. This sort of, I one time, um, I think I mentioned maybe this too in a polo. Like, if I'm in the hallway and I'm moving from place to place, a student needs to talk to me. Like, I don't often stop. I'm like, come on, you got to come with me. You want to talk? I'll talk with you, but you got to move with me. Move with me. I've done the same thing to teachers. So I'm on. So imagine this: I'm sort of walking around the cafeteria. Teacher. So let's say I'm at 12 o'clock, and the teacher kind of comes in a door that's like at 6 o'clock at the cafeteria, and they see me across there, and they got to get the walkie-talkie from me. I don't stop moving and wait for them. I keep moving around the cafeteria, and I have had teachers make the choice to sort of follow my path. Like, so I'm moving counterclockwise or whatever, and they decide to go counterclockwise, and they don't catch up with me. Like, they're like, this guy's not stopping. Like, they would have been better to go the opposite direction and head me off. But they've made the decision to sort of come around to me, and I guess they figure I'm just going to stop and wait for them to hand off the walkie. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to keep circling around to that door you just came in, and I'm just going to walk out. And there has been a couple times where they actually haven't caught up to me, and I just take the walkie and I put it on the table as I walk out. I was like, I kind of point to the walkie and I keep on going. Um, Wonder what that would look like, on without context. Like, what's he doing? Like, he's running away from the other teacher that's supposed to do the on call there. So,
Rochelle says she thinks it could go both ways.
I'm curious which, because there's a couple things in the chat. Is that a comment back to the student has a right to fail, or is it about proud of teachers doing their supervisions? Could be to either. We'll see if we get the word drop from Rochelle, which one they were commenting on.
So one of the things you said, there's cameras everywhere surveilling the outside, but yet there's still a human outside walking back
Mhm.
and forth, waving at the cameras. I don't think anybody's like you. Nobody's watching this footage unless I say to somebody, "Hey, at 12:17, this car drove in, almost hit a kid. Can you look
Mhm.
into it?" Then, and that's the that's part of the fun of this is that nobody's watching this tape. Um,
Mhm.
but I'm still having fun with it. Um, I am so hyper aware that there are cameras everywhere in my building that now as I walk the halls, I look for them. I think it's good awareness for me to know where they are so that if I'm in a situation or see a situation, I now know what to do. Um, look at my first thing I do when I see a situation in the hall now is I look at my watch. What time is it? Because I'm going to
Yeah.
need to reference this time. Rochelle said to Roland's question in the chat, and my question was, oh, Rochelle had said that she's not heard that phrase in her building, and I think she was referring to the kids have the right to fail.
Mhm.
Um, and her answer was, I think it could go both ways.
Mhm.
Now, I believe some kids are failing because it's a cry for help. They're missing class or they're being defiant or whatever they're doing is because they're suffering and they want help. And then I think other kids are not interested in, like, how many kids have said to me when I say, why don't you go to this class? They're like, because I don't like it. I'm not interested in any of this. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to listen to the teacher talk about it. And I say to them, I completely understand. Um, do you think I want to be having this conversation with you? And they're like, no. I'm like, but it's like it has to happen. There's
So,
no alternative for you. You have to go to class and you have to work on getting this credit. There
well,
shouldn't be an option. There isn't
yeah.
a viable there isn't a viable one. There isn't. We're not built. The system's not built for that. There isn't. Okay, Chris, if you don't like religion, we have
Mhm.
this course on the side called Make Up Your Own Credit, and you can go there. We don't have that. So working within the parameters of what I have and what I don't have, again, between me and the kid, you don't want to go, I'm not going to twist your arm, but there
That's
are
fair. That's
consequences
fair.
to you not going. Can I help? That's it,
Yeah,
right?
there's so much going on in that moment. So much going on. Even as you frame it, my brain wants to take a wrecking ball to it.
Yeah, tell me.
But
I
even
want to hear
but
what you have to
but
say.
but even as you say it, I also understand the fishbowl that it exists in. And I like how you said, you having the conversation with the kid in this moment between you and I. Now is not the time. Like, this isn't the place for us to talk about this. You frame the conversation. In this conversation, this is what we are talking about. And by putting it in a frame, then you also produce the fence lines on it, which you also did as well. I'm not going to force the kid. I'm not going to force you to go, but I am going to discuss this moment with you. So what's very real and has become more real, I think, in my experience, is this idea that because the students don't like courses, they will not go to class. And I think from my experience, I used to take that just as righteousness, just as pure righteousness, that, and almost my brain would be like, how dare you say that? This is the system we operate in. And then you kind of get into this little bit of mindset, like, it is a absolute wonder that we have such an awesome system that, that is perceptively free. I mean, I get it, taxes, but you get to come here every day, have an education. We get a little bit too close to the privilegey. It's a privilege for you to be here. No, it's a right. You have a right to be here. And within all that, historically, we've really extinguished preference in lieu of, this is the system, accept it. We have to follow the system. You pick these courses back in February, you have to follow them in, the September. You thought at one point you want to be an artist, now you want to be a historian. You never met this teacher before, and you're now expected to be positive and connected and human with this individual that you find to be not a great human, not a great teacher. There's so many little variables that we almost have to dismiss or fold away or swallow in order to support what sometimes feels like an overly fragile system. Because the moment we start to operate outside of this understanding, and I get it, the frame of conversation that you're sitting in, we can't expand out into this. You're gonna burn it down. We need to have a separate table to be able to sort of work through this. But it strikes me that one of the elements that is just cuspy, as in, I don't know how it hasn't shattered the system more, is this statement of, I don't like the course. And us having no real space to discuss that other than follow the rule. I don't like the course. I think there's truth. I think there's honesty. I think there's systematic challenge. I think that there's data in there that we don't get to because we ultimately go back to, you have to follow the rule. You pick these courses, right? We get into this overly parental kind of like mindset that I get this social institution engenders and fuels us in this way. The law tells us we're a parent when the parents aren't there. So it's hard to escape that trap. But if we become tacticians and almost philosophers in our own craft, then a student telling you that they don't like the course almost means, okay, you said the words, we need to slow this right down. Because I need to get a better understanding of what's actually going on here. Because even grade 9 students are saying this now. They're coming in and they're saying, I don't like the course. Grade 12s used to say it, and they're flexing, like, I'm going to do what I need to do, get out of my way. They be polite, and then they go about their business. Then it was 12s and 11s, and then you see 10s, and now officially grade 9. So now we have a full cohort that has an opinion, a full cohort that will take action to demonstrate their opinion. A full cohort that, developmentally speaking, tends not to negotiate well because executive functioning isn't all that great. And sometimes information gathering isn't all that great. The two traps that I say teenagers often fall into: overly emotional, don't know what they're talking about. They just want what they want. They're little ego monsters, but they're behaving and they're communicating their wants and needs through behavior. They're going to skip, they're going to oppose, they're going to take a detention. They're like, because the intent here is that detention, they see the limits of the system, they see the fragility of the system. And it's not on them to negotiate in good faith. It isn't. They get to do what they want to do because that's the stage of life that they're in. Now, you said it, there will be consequences. There has to be. You take an action, the world reacts. Then you take an action, the world reacts. This is life, right? This is life. Consequence free is a pretty boring life, both good and bad. So I find this moment really fascinating. I find it's one of the conversations in education that is just really sparking my curiosity. What is going on here? This sudden, and I get it, probably we've all said this in the past with many people say, I don't like this course. I'm not so precious to believe that this is a brand new, but I'm seeing the trend of more students now not really bothered. Like almost any student, it used to be we could color this and say, well, yeah, we look at your spotty past and you skip courses in the past. No, I'm saying it has become kind of ubiquitous that at any point a student could say, I don't like the class, that's why I'm not going. And in some cases, we step in with plans that help them recover credits, restore dignity, reconnect, re-engage. We've brought the tools that we think we need into the field to triage those moments. But I'm still encountering more and more students that are just like, yeah, I'm just not going to go. And then this extension of this, the parents are like, we're fine with that. And they're saying we're fine with that either by they're just not in the picture, or they're actually saying it's their responsibility. They're going to sort of navigate this. And the system doesn't have a way to respond to this. We tend to fall on punishment. We tend to fall on mark. We tend to fall on deficit. But what if this wasn't a deficit conversation? What if this was an opportunity to sort of, and I don't know what the opportunity is, believe me, this is just me acting like as I do, like a philosopher. What's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity here that because you and that student can only talk about this moment in a specific way because you have a mandate, the kid has a mandate, and there isn't a table to kind of move there. I wonder, kids not wanting to go to the class isn't them not wanting to go to school. So, and I will say sometimes, if you're in possession of information that actually authorizes that behavior, as in you say to yourself, yep, I know that course. I wouldn't want to go either. Come on, buck up. You gotta do it. Come on, you got another month and a half. We sort of do the cajoling factor, but the pedagogy ain't great. And the relationship building ain't great. And historically speaking, this ain't the first kid that said, I don't want to go to that class. Now, again, I'm not moving towards our union infractions kind of here. But we also, as professionally managed timekeepers, we have access sometimes to this information. We get a broad swath of what's going on in the classrooms, whether we're in the classrooms helping out. I'm talking about spec ed teachers, student success teachers, re-engagement teachers. We have relationships to the system that are very different than like a history teacher's or a math teacher's relationship to the overall system. So we get sometimes 10,000 foot kind of observation. So we know. And you're standing there in front of the kid, you're like, come on, you just got to get this assignment done. And I've had that moment where I cue into the moment. I get present and I see the look on the kid's face, and the kid is not looking at me. The kid's looking at me, and the look on their face is like, man, this guy just doesn't get it. And the second part to that, I get a look on my face, but it's inside my brain. I'm like, man, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And what I don't get is why I don't have access to the conversation that's happening is to How do we actually parse out? How do we pull apart the fact that this kid just doesn't want to go to this class? They don't like it. How do we move through that conversation to actually get something from it? And I'm not looking for compliance. I'm actually looking at how do we build richness back into the system such that we can reduce the possibility of this conversation ever happening. And you actually get back to what it is. Yeah. I'm gonna go. I know I got to go back. And they'll say I just had to connect with a friend, but they feel torn between connecting with their friend and making it back to the class. I get very few students torn like that. Right. Sorry. I'm on my way. They're off and back. They were doing what teenagers do. They forgot. They were doing what teenagers do, connecting with friends. They were doing what teenagers do, grabbing a snack from the calf, but they were hustling back to class. They were being, their version of kind of sneaky, and then they fix it. Now they're not being sneaky and they don't want to fix it. They're just flat out saying, I don't like it. I'm not going to go. And we have no tools. We have no tools from my assessment, other than the toolbox that we carry. I'm not forlorn in this. I'm fascinated. I want to end on that. I'm fascinated because I've shifted this conversation with a kid last year. I would have solely went punitive. No, you have to go. You can't be absent. You have X number of lates. You have to finish the credit. I would have kind of been more in that camp. Now I'm like, I want to know more. I want to know more. And can you talk about why you don't want to be there? Not from tell it from your preference, tell it from your experience. Try and be honest from what you're experiencing. Don't make it about what somebody else did wrong. I don't want you to hear, I don't want to hear blame. I don't want to hear accusation. Not right away. You can bring that to the administrator. But for me, from your experience, what is it that you're feeling? What is it you're thinking? What is it that you're sort of experiencing when you're in that class? Tell me about your emotional state. Tell me about your day. Tell me about context. So, damn, that was a TED Talk.
Well, I'm glad that you provided us with the TED Talk. As
Mhm.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, I've gone deep with some of these kids for them to then turn around and not acknowledge any of my questions and wonderings. And I just say to them, you're not even interested in going deep on why you don't want to do this, which makes me think you just lazy, or there's some type of trauma connected that you can't deal with. But at the end of the day, you're going to fail. You're not going to get the credit. And then you'll be sitting across from me again because somebody thinks that you're learning accommodations that aren't working, when really what's not working is you. You're not doing any work. So you've got all these accommodations in place and they're useless unless you do something with them. I'm now having, this is so cool that now I'm in my second year of this work. I'm now working with kids who I've seen fail courses, who have been placed into credit recovery sections and are still not doing the work. And so the conversations now are very different because they're like, you failed this course once and they put you in credit recovery and you're not even going to credit recovery. I see you march in the hallways. Your social game is high. But at the end of the day, you putting so much time and effort into the social game is not getting you anywhere in the academic game. And I know you don't care, but when you're technically in grade 12 and you only have 6 credits, this becomes problematic for the rest of your life. And it's one of those things where I can say it and they just don't get it because it's just not real to them. Every now and again, I have a student say to me, "You just don't understand." And then I sit back and I say to them, "Would you like some context?" And they look at me funny and I'm like, "Do you think that my high school career was easy? Would you like to hear a little bit about mine and the miracle that is me sitting in front of you right now as an educator in the exact role that I wish I would have been connected to when I was in high school?" only I would say, less than 5 people in the last year and a half have actually engaged in my story, where it was about me for 5 to 10 minutes so that I could impress upon them that I was once just like them. There was no credit recovery, which meant I had to go to summer school every year, right? There was night school if I could do that, but it was they just by the skin of my teeth, I passed certain courses because of caring, compassionate adults. And then there was summer school, and then there was like the year that I skipped. Like when I tell them these things, I'm like, I wish I had a monitor. I wish I was on somebody's radar. They could be like, whoa, have you seen Chidiac's attendance? Somebody needs to sit down and talk to this kid. I said, when I was in school, if that existed, I never knew of it. I never knew of it. And here we are having this conversation. You're trying to get this credit again. And I'm like, you know, I've gone as far to say, you may not like your teachers, but I know some of them and I know they'll bend over backwards for you and you won't even let them do that. So make your choices. You can't say that nobody tried to help you. I'm here to help and I'm here to listen. You don't want to use that? That's your choice as well. It's all your choice. But don't tell me I don't know. I know because I was once you, exactly you. And by the grace, I call it God, right? For me, by the grace of God, and I did the work. Here I am, the privilege of getting to sit with you and have this conversation. They're either like, "You're crazy, Chidiac," or "Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know." And I'm like, "Well, why would you know? I'm not walking around advertising. I'm just saying, when you tell me I don't understand, you're 100% wrong. I do understand. I do, because I was you."
Hmm.
Ultimately, bro, I know it's their choice. Like, I know, and I'm not losing any sleep. And I think that's because I've set my fence line around me. I
Mhm.
know what my work is, and I work hard to do my work. And I'm constantly open and listening to if people have suggestions on how to do it better or how to do it different to become effective. I do. I'm very open. And man, somebody said to me the other day, they're like, I would not want your job in a million years. You are just a walking target board. And I'm like, tell me more. They're like, parents are throwing darts at you, staff are throwing darts at you, kids are throwing darts at you. Why do you do this work? I'm like, I don't know. There's something about it I like. There's something about it I like. Yeah, throw your darts, man. It to me, I'm learning in my friendship with you and in the learning I do daily on the side and the things I do to keep me going. Um, I'm learning that if people are throwing darts at me and it's not really hurting, then maybe I'm doing something right for me. Like I'm living my best authentic life. So it's okay if you don't like it. It's okay. You don't have to like it. So if I'm getting hit with darts and it's not really hurting, I see that as like positive growth for me. I don't know how anybody could do this job if they cared about what everybody else thought all the time. That would overwhelm me to think these people don't like me, this person doesn't like me. How would I do this job? How would I do any job? Yeah, man, it's a huge privilege to have come where I've come in school to do this work now with these kids. I'm like, this is friggin' awesome. How did I end up here? I think this is fantastic.
I think that's I'm going to say no. I know for me, from my experience, I won't make this a universal, but I also do because I have experienced this. Um, that when when we choose to share stories of our path through education, I think that I think that uh, even you sort of mentioning that that can be that can be problematic in those moments. It can be problematic because again, it's superimposing something that you know about your path and making it maybe for some aspirational. It might be aspirational. For others, they could still say, but that was just your path through. Like that was how you went through. That's my first thought on that and I've said on other times, my problems with education too. And I think when I've said it, I think I've said it with the mindset of it tends to be in kind of deficit moments. Like it tends to be like I tell a story about my success because I'm actually talking about something that's kind of negative. So it's my way to say, you can do it too. You can do it. You can sort of turn this one around. And I find myself telling those stories less and less, or sometimes framing it in a really weird way, as in, can I share a story about how I navigated this moment? You may or may not like it, but can I share that story? And I've had students say no. I'm like, okay. And I walk away from it. I just then what I have left are my system tools. Like if I can't give it some color, right? Um, and the second thing that comes to mind is your success. I mean, and you kind of triggered me this way. You saying, I wish I had someone like me. I wish I had someone like me when I was going through this. But then if you did, you wouldn't have the story to share. So there's a multiverse kind of moment here. And again, giving space to sort of hear the kid tell you why they're not going to go to class and actually saying, okay, and walking away might actually be the exact same mentoring that you capitalized on when you had no one. You kind of just followed your instinct. You followed your path. You kind of got stuff done. You pulled yourself up. You responded to the stressors in your world and you became who you are now. There's a lot that happens in our system. And I'm not saying like raised by wolves kind of mindset, but there are quite a few bumpers on the bowling lane now that ensure that kids hit the pins at the end of the alley. And it's just a thing. It's not ironic. It's just a thing. It's how we operate now, even more tactically now than, pre-COVID. There's a whole lot of things that kind of get the kid across the finish line, whatever that might be. But we are really uncomfortable going back. We're almost like strangely uncomfortable. And this is a little bit like sharing our success stories with this idea that the kid tells you, I'm not going to go to class, because part of our response is we have so many tools. Like, how is it that you just do one more paragraph? Well, what if we just don't say that? What if we just say, okay, I'll check back in with you next week. I don't have a story. I don't have something positive to share. This is me reminding you that I'm in the building. There are times where my check-in with kids, and I color code it, is a head nod in the hallway, and I'd make that as a mark. I just put in hall, my check-in for the week. I don't do the follow-up. I look at the data. I don't ask anymore like what's going on with math. I kind of note, I'm like, here on my door, it says I offer help. I sometimes do it that way too. And I just let the story play out. I know for me that there's a very short list of individuals that I would say kept me on track as I went through school. And at the time, it's hindsight. I would have been able to say at the time exactly what they were doing. But looking back, I now see that the places to land that they offered me were very useful. And I I wouldn't say because if I chose not to go to school, I never landed in these spaces. But I did think to myself, when I needed somewhere to land when I was at school, those landing spaces tended to keep me at school and I finished my day. So it's funny to think back, I will speak of Mr. Fitch's, I will speak of Mr. Watson, I will speak of Miss Glass, these individuals that back in elementary school, Mr. Zamarski, like these are people that when I look back at the spaces that they let me to sort of come into, either by, I mean, sometimes because I had bad behavior too, that I tended to stay. I did get a little bit of a reset. Um, but I definitely wasn't aware of the usefulness of that at the time. And I would have been the type of kid that if someone tried to tell me a story about their success, I wouldn't have been able to make the connection. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have been able to sort of glean something for it. And like, oh yeah, you and I we're kind of on the same path. So I like this. I mean, this is the perfect depth for where I started with this, this right to fail. And it feels like a different way to talk about it. And it also feels like it's tapping a little bit into back in the day when I was still doing alt ed. And often one of the tensions in alt ed was that the kids that landed in alt ed were the ones that we considered deficient. They couldn't do regular school. And one of the conversations I was constantly pushing, like, well, what if alt ed is regular school? How does that conversation look like? Alt ed is regular school. It is another tool to support a student in a different way. My principal, David McAdam, helped me understand at a deeper level. How is it personalized? How is it alternative? Tell me specifically. And if you can't figure that shit out, you need to. You need to be able to say how it's personalized, how it's alternative, because that's what it's called. So tell me how this is personalized and alternative for Roland. Tell me. And if you ain't there, that's the tactic. You need to figure that out, because otherwise you're just doing quote unquote regular school. Because if we can't say how it's personalized and alternative, then we're just sending kids there because they're deficient. We actually don't get the kid. We don't actually understand what's going on. And let's not be that person. Let's not punish a kid into learning. So it brings together this larger conversation around preference in school, comfort in school. And if a kid just says, I don't like the course, I'm not going to go. Do we bear any responsibility to find a way to kind of tease that out in a very textured and structured way? Incredibly difficult.
I like a lot of what you said. I like that you said that there was somebody like me, if there was somebody like me in high school working with me, would I be here today? Right? Would I be doing this today? Would I be where I am today? I love that. I love that very much, because what's been a struggle for me in the last 3 or 4 years has been this notion that everything I've experienced has brought me to where I am today. And I really like where I am today. Um, I like the job that I'm doing. I like my family. Like, I like all these things where I am right now. And I like that I have some stories along the way that can help people if they choose to listen, or if they choose to engage, not listen. Because people do listen. But like you said, does it mean anything? Does it mean anything to anybody? The only time I open that door is when the two times I've opened that door is when kids say to me, "How did you always want to be a teacher? How did you end up here?" And I'm like, "Well, that's a story and a half." And or when they say, "You don't get it. You don't understand me. You don't understand what I'm going through." And I'm like, everybody's situation is different, but I certainly didn't I didn't grow up like with a linear path. My path was as bumpy as yours looks right now, and I don't know where you end up. Again, there's a lot of, and I can say this with you here on the Decoded podcast and our millions of listeners, these kids are very well on the path that I believe they should be on, but I can't say that. I can't be like, well, I guess you're going to have to fail grade 10 and see what comes next in order to lead you down the road to where you're supposed to be. I'm not going to say that to them. Um, but I think this is part of their path, which is hilarious because we're trying to reroute their path, and then sometimes it works and it's part of their narrative, and sometimes it's not, and it's still part of their narrative that, hey, all these people in school tried to help me, but I still skipped every single class, never went anywhere, and now I'm leaving this building with like 3 credits and gonna figure out my life now that I'm out of this building. That's part of their path. It's philosophically, it's a mind bend, but I get paid every day to do a job, and so I go and I do it. And for me, selfishly, I'm making memories and having experiences with these kids that sometimes I think I'm glad I don't work with them anymore, and sometimes I think I really enjoyed working with them. And that's part of my path.
I think there's another element to this that this will have to be part two of the podcast, is that there's to a lesser degree, there's a shorter tolerance for the stories that are traded face to face. We now have multiple generations that are connecting equally and sometimes even more deeply to what they see on the screen. And the stories that they connect with on the screen are disposable to a degree. There's a tension there between these two ideas. Spending so much time digitally connected and the ability that not the ability, the fact that it could be streamed later, it could be streamed at their convenience. The idea of a live feed is just one moment to actually capture someone's attention. And really, it's less about the live feed and more about the iterative nature of that information. How many different ways can we manipulate it? How many different ways can we look at it? How many different people have liked it? How many people have shared it? And then on to the next thing. There's a brevity that now exists in, I think, people's tolerance for mentorship and coaching. And if the human story that's being shared in front of the individual doesn't somehow mirror a teenager's feeds, then it doesn't entirely get in. So you got to be pretty shrewd in the sort of like pocket exchanges that you have with kids. So I think that is something that works against sometimes these moments of coaching and mentoring, which are slower and longer in nature and based on repetition and re-meeting, right? And working on a chapter at a time. The concept of being able to scroll and binge, I think, has changed how students tolerate discussion. And sometimes I kind of lean into that hard. The other day I told the students, because I put out they do a writing task for me that I call a 10 by 10 by 10. 10 sentences, each with 10 words. You got 10 minutes. Here's your topic, go. And part of me is, and it's a random topic. Sometimes it is peripherally connected with what we're looking at in the unit. Sometimes it's a complete random thing. And I tell them it is ideal here. You're aiming, you're aspiring to a skill so you have something to aim for. It's a goal, not an intention. So you are pounding, trying to deliver this 100 words. They're like, exactly? I'm like, exactly. 10 words in each sentence? Exactly. And it has to be literate. It has to be fluent. It has to have a beginning, middle, and end. I said, but I want you to know how much writing you can get done in 10 minutes. I said, because that's a very useful metric moving forward. You have to write 4 paragraphs, 40 minutes. You have to do a 5-paragraph essay, 50 minutes. In theory. One of the topics that I gave them was, what have you noticed about Clough? And about 30% of the students said I talk too much. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. When I shared with them the why, I told them straight up honestly, I said, because I'm competing with short attention spans. And I can't be in small packages between you checking your computer, you checking your phone. They also didn't like that I moved around the class. So I could be talking and teaching from anywhere in the classroom. I don't like that he can see my screen. I don't like it when someone stands behind me, blah, 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 blah. That distraction is one of the fleeting moments that I have their complete attention. And in that fleeting moment, I'm going to put in as much as I can before I say, go ahead, work on your individual task. So there's a high amount of discussion in my learning strategies class. And I can walk you through my pedagogy as to the why. But when I told them, yes, I am intentionally distracting you and keeping you from your phones, the look on their faces were like, this guy. But I'm entirely aware that's the space I'm in. I'm in their space. I'm in their way. I'm keeping them from getting to what they want to do. I don't have a lot of students leave class though, which I find ironic. And they come back. And I don't really have any attendance or lateness issues. So they come back. So I don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. There's no brag here because it's tactics. It's just the way I kind of roll in class. And I could have another section where this doesn't work, but typically this has worked for me. But the tolerance for the discussion, I can see they leave class after period 1, and some of them look like they're going to fall asleep again. Like they got very little left. I'm using it all up. I'm using, in some cases, that kid's full day of focus in period 1. And I just keep pushing them. I'm like, I'm going to take more. I'm going to take it all. Find out, figure it out. How are you going to get more so that you're okay for your period 2 teacher? So I like this. I like this idea that, the sharing of stories slows things down, but I also recognize in that sometimes the kids can drown in that story. They actually don't appreciate being slowed down at all because what they're moving through is that you are unscrollable. You are unscrollable. You can't be put on pause. You're the fire hose bringing the story, trying to sort of get them into the space to move on next. And sometimes that's really useful. Sometimes I see students pivot and walk the opposite direction when they see me. And I'm not even looking for them. I'm actually on my way to somewhere else, but they see how fast I'm moving and they're like, oh shit, Cluff's coming for me. And then a couple times it's funny, I just pass right by them, just keep on going. And I swear once or twice I hear a, whew, he's not coming for me.
Rochelle's out. Thanks, Rochelle, for hanging with us.
Fun weekend.
I don't remember the last time we went this long. Jeez. But I suspect we are done for today. Do you have any more you want to add, Chris?
Dude, I took up way too much here. Way too much.
It's all good. Hopefully next week, I'll remember to tell you and our listeners a story about a student that I caught cheating the other day. And yeah, it broke my heart. And I could tell the student was crushed. But hey,
the cheater or the cheated? The cheater was crushed.
The cheater was crushed, but I think that's because they got caught and I wasn't being flexible. with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, hey, you cheated and you lied to me. So, um,
Yeah,
tough, right? Tough.
yeah. You have a
I'm
right to
sure.
fail.
Yeah, you have a right to fail. You made the choice to cheat, and it
Yeah.
didn't work out for you this time around. So hopefully
It
next week we could talk a little bit about that.
it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Imagine you made a mistake. I cheated by mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, anyway, I
Let's
put that
talk
out
about
there for the
choices.
AI. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the AI can help me remember next week.
We'll see. We'll
Thanks for
see.
your time this weekend. Oh, and I wish you a wonderful birthday tomorrow.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah,
54. 54 years old.
54. It's a good number.
It's a great number. 46 years left.
That's right, because you're in charge of that, right?
Yep. Living to 100, baby. Living to 100.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your birthday. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our listeners and to Gary and Rochelle for jumping in on the chat. And
Perfect.
that's it for this was season 9, episode 12, number 360 of the Decoded podcast. Peace, man.
Peace, man.